Okay, so including the 12-hour Telltale video, this is the second video I've made on The Wolf Among Us, and we are still yet to receive the second game on The Wolf Among Us. Maybe I've just been playing too much Wolfenstein lately, but yes, in this video I am going to explore the many wonderful and wacky moments in which Big B Wolf Among Us bloody lights one up. Obviously, this video is very inspired by the fantastic video about how many times you can pee in the game Heavy Rain by Ali Meowie. I was absolutely spellbound and enchanted, does sound like the same thing, by this absurdly mundane concept. It's the exact amount of boring and unremarkable that is just my favorite thing, and I immediately was challenged by myself to apply this kind of earnest thinking to my own crap videos. They probably say something in their video in the same vein, but peeing is a real downtime moment that every person experiences. A moment to stop and catch your breath, take a load off, and just exist in that moment of piss relief, and to see it kind of portrayed in a video game is so unusual and neat. So, my mind went to The Walking Dead, as it often has, or does. I'm not sure I've gone a singular week since the game released without thinking about it. It is truly my Roman Empire, my one and only. But you see, what to do with The Walking Dead? What mundane and unremarkable and normal everyday thing could facilitate and row this video boat, keeping it afloat? Who am I? Fucking Dr. Seuss over here. Naturally, the mind goes to the dialogue choices, in particular the ones where you can abstain from dialogue choices and just go mute all of a sudden. But then the mind remembers that these videos were all the rage way back when, if you know your scumbag Lee, that is. It also doesn't thematically or contextually excite me because choosing dialogue is the core game mechanic of these Telltale games, for better or worse. It's almost too boring and normal. There's nothing to be said about the constant lack of saying. No, it needed to be something more random and selective and boring. Something that didn't always happen, something that was always a rarity or felt special enough for you to notice but not really linger on at all. This is why peeing is such a perfect idea, because playing the game a certain way or killing people is expected. Games usually don't have peeing, so even though it's tangible in reality, it seems abnormal while playing. It's this weird contradiction in immersion, where the idea is obviously to strengthen the illusion of the game world, yet you're always inadvertently reminded of the illusion. It simultaneously takes you out of the game, but makes sense in the world of the game. Killing in The Walking Dead makes sense, but it wouldn't take you out of the experience. And you can't pee in that game, so fuck. I do have one or two ideas for The Walking Dead, as I'm still desperate to talk about it and make videos on it, but the ship may have sailed. The boat may not be floating anymore, you know? Or rowing, anyway. And then I thought of Telltale's next game, The Wolf Among Us, and how at a few points in the game you can be prompted to light a ciggy and potentially even exhale that bad boy. So that's what we're doing. There's surely going to be many caveats and variables along the way, but I reckon it'll be more fun to explain when we get to them. This is a deceptively simple idea that I'm sure will actually be a ball ache to see through, but luckily I have all the footage from my Telltale video as well, so I can just choose the opposite to see basically every outcome of the game. Hopefully there's no inappropriate jokes about Jenna Ortega, but you really never know with me because I'm a bastard. I actually had a dream about Jenna Ortega in which she is standing on my shoes while wearing the same shoes. Here's a sonnet I composed for Jenna Ortega based on the dream.
Because I've got no friends.
God, no friends, God, no friends, God, no friends. You've got no friends. You've got your friends and I do not have them.
Paul Heyman is your friend.
He's got no friends. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Well, we're here with a different perspective than last time, so let's see how many cigarettes we can fit into your packet. Maybe you're stood shy in your dad's jacket. And maybe this video... oh no. And maybe this video will be a moment we will always keep. Also, one more caveat. I have never smoked, but at the risk of sounding definitely wanky and pretentious, not that it stopped me before, the idea and the theme of smoking does resonate. As mentioned, it's often a topic... Did I mention that? I don't know, I wrote that. Anyway, as mentioned, it's often a topic or used to present a feeling in a song or movie. Take Slaughter Beach Dog's Anything, where the song details someone wanting a smoke, only to find they have none left.
You think a smoke could calm you down? Take a deep breath. Check your pack, you're out of smokes.
And you can feel it's a moment of reserved disappointment, I guess, whatever that is. Look at the album cover of Slaughter Beach Dog's Welcome. The use of a cigarette just adds to the vibe. Look, just go listen to Slaughter Beach Dog, alright? That Welcome album is fucking perfect, and the quintessential early mid-20s suburban malaise feeling encapsulated in music and words. You gotta listen to it, man. I'm telling you. In fact, stop watching this video, go listen to the album. It's actually shorter than this video by just a few minutes, so Go away and listen to the album, and if you like it, well, you know, bloody, I don't know, do whatever you want. The act of smoking just feels so melancholic and lonely to me, in some regards. I would argue it's not too dissimilar to having a piss, a moment of reprieve and quiet, something to dull the edge and calm your nerves, something to just do. I don't know, maybe it's just the media I've seen, but smoking simultaneously seems ugly and beautiful. Is it ugly for someone to hide out in the garage during a family dinner with a cigarette? Or is it beautiful to get away from all the chaos and noise and just have a moment to feel like yourself? I'm sure a lot of people associate a lot of their identity with smoking. I don't know, and I never will, and I want to get off the ride now because I'm talking absolute bollocks as ever, and probably romanticizing a very real and serious issue for many people. How do I do it? We're 9 minutes in. In the case of Bigby and the Wolf Among Us, it's of course used to set a tone and mood, feel more noir-like. It's not a cool or special thing, but it's the kind of thing that you'd imagine someone like that in a world like this would do. So he does. Like how the characters of Heavy Rain seem almost like human beings, and human beings be peeing. This is why I thought smoking was an okay idea, since it is intrinsically linked to Bigby's character in a way you wouldn't question. That's the 10-minute intro. Now we can do the thing. So immediately, there are some road bumps. You know how the entire conceit of this video was to determine the amount of time— well, you saw the title. Well, it actually happens only a handful of times. And I'm telling you this now because it is so rare that it is almost not worth making a video about. But I already started doing this, so I've had to pivot slightly, and I'm letting you know now, too far into the video where most people have clicked off, and those who haven't probably would have stuck around, and well, you'll just be absolutely gutted now, probably. But bear with me here, as there are still interesting things to discuss and mention, but maybe not in such a general way, unless you really love The Wolf Among Us, but you'd probably know these things then. So I'm not really sure what I can do for you here. Go listen to the album. and then listen to my album, which isn't going to be finished by then yet. In fact, maybe that's a more apt title for the video, but I'll decide that when you're actually watching it. Boring and unremarkable things in The Wolf Among Us. I am on my any Austin bullshit. Oh yes, I'm just trying to make any video. So the main thing I want to make clear right now is that I'm also going to be counting every moment when Bigby or anyone else lights a cigarette at all. If it's been lit, it likely will then be smoked. So, you know, whether the game prompts it, whether it's your choice, it doesn't matter. So if you don't like it, well, that's fair. Like most things, the idea doesn't end up aligning with the outcome, so that's why we've had to do a bit of pivoting. What is important is that I disappoint you now before further potential and likely disappointing. So there you go. Are you disappointed yet? Starting with episode 1, there are a grand total of 0 player choice moments to light a cigarette or smoke. So that's 2.5 hours and many more to go, wasted. But the people, the characters in the game, smoke a total of 7 cigarettes across this first episode. Just hit the mic. I'm realizing again how flawed of an idea this truly is. Peeing is something that every person has to do. If you don't, then you'll just explode in some fashion. But smoking a cigarette is a choice that an individual makes. As said, it can be a defining trait for some. So while at least one of these moments in the first episode could have been via my player choice, it actually makes sense that it isn't. Regardless of what kind of person your Bigby is, he is a smoker. That is a defining trait of his character. So every moment where he does smoke shouldn't feel like it could be changed or altered, but instead used for a little dramatic flair or flourish of his character. Whatever that means. Maybe your Bigby won't rip out a throat or two, but he'll sure ruin his own. The game isn't about him giving up smoking, it's just a part of him at this point. Why am I doing this again? Nonetheless, Bigby can first be seen lighting one up as he exits a taxi, arriving at an apartment building where the woodsman is beating up a hooker. Our second cigarette, being lit, comes by way of Bigby lighting this hooker's cigarette, after dispatching with Woody. That was a weird sentence, for some reason. Now this one is unique, the second one total, because you can either light her cigarette or you can find a matchbook outside the apartment and just give her that instead. It doesn't matter, but you may think that it's her matchbook and feel the moral duty to return it, but it actually belongs to the woodsman. It's also unique because I'm pretty sure Faith won't be able to light the cigarette on her own, so the choice does matter in that sense. I may be wrong, you'll see on the screen. And our third cigarette of just this introductory sequence is what ironically closes the sequence. Bigby's light dramatically cuts us to the intro credits. It's worth noting that this happens a fair bit. As said, cigarettes are often used in media to convey a tone, and this game often uses it to great effect to emphasize an ending beat or moment. Or just beat, yeah, I don't know. And I never thought about it, but in this case the intro sequence may actually just be the following moments of the game, Bigby wandering back to his apartment with cigarette in hand, anticipating Faith's arrival, and then cigarettes 4 and 5 are Bigby and the pig he's housing, who I referred to accidentally in my video as the Colin. Well, I didn't actually, but it sure sounds like I said it, and with that piece of text accompanying it, good luck not hearing the Colin, you bastard. Anyway, yes, even the pigs in this world smoke, and unlike the following drink, that isn't your choice to make. This is why being able to choose to smoke is so significant in this world. Somehow. I just kinda wrote that and didn't know what it meant. Also, I noticed that Bigby is keeping his cigarette reserves in the refrigerator. The game opens with a radio broadcast detailing that they're in the midst of a heatwave. This is funny, because as I played the game, it was also a heatwave where I live, and it in fact hadn't been this hot this time of year since 1985, apparently. So let's just say that playing the game from the hours of 3 to 6 AM every day in near 30-degree heat while my fan was blowing hard, like it is now, you can probably hear it, well, it really did something for me. Back to the refrigerator though, apparently this may be an old wives' tale and doesn't really keep them fresh, which actually perfectly aligns with this kind of storybook fable world. A character like Bigby would probably believe something like that, or maybe he'd actually be skeptical of it. Do I know anything? You can also notice a ton of used cigarettes in Bigby's ashtray. I mean, they're not going to not be used if they're in the... Anyway, which isn't much of a surprising detail, but it's nice to see. Don't worry, we're not counting the total amount of cigarettes found in the world, and that'd be stupid. Yeah, that'd be stupid. When talking to the Colin about the job we just came back from, if you for some reason mention Mr. Toad, the Colin will mention his kids, that being plural. We only ever meet TJ, so maybe he was meant to have another kid, or maybe they changed it and no one picked this dialogue so no one ever noticed. Let's be real, out of Toad, Beauty, and that random girl that left a heck of an impression, we're all mentioning the random girl that left a heck of an impression. But I never noticed it, and maybe you didn't either, and this video is all of the inconsequential bullshit that you don't notice or care about, I guess. On to cigarette number 6, and in my humble opinion, this one could have been a choice. We're at the business office and Snow is being verbally attacked by Crane after revealing there's been a murder. That Faith girl, in case you somehow didn't know. Have you played the game? What are you doing here? I don't know. As Crane leaves for his morning massage, Bigby lights one up, which Snow advises us not to before relenting. Why not make that a choice? I'm trying to make a damn stupid video here, Snow. But as said, isn't this something Bigby would have done regardless? It's only a worthwhile choice if you can imagine it not happening, so when you make it not happen, it feels believable. I don't know why I talk to you like you're a toddler or something. I noticed something else in this area. Crane mentions Vivian, who we know to be Georgie's right-hand woman at the strip club. Snow then calls Vivian to square away some invoice dispute. I stood there and listened to the whole conversation, which didn't reveal anything out of the ordinary, besides Snow not hanging up the phone until she is supposed to later on. My guess was that this was to do with the hooker Crane was meeting, Lily, being glamoured as Snow White, potentially charging him for this extra service, but it's never really made clear what it's about. I guess it's more just there for a replay, so you'll pick up on what Crane is actually going to do. Once we find out some information on Faith, you choose to go to her husband's apartment or to visit Toad again. I went to Prince Lawrence last time. Faith's... I guess they're separate, I don't know. So I went to Toad this time, and after we leave, Bigby lights the 7th and final cigarette of episode 1. But outside of silly cigarette video ideas, I would make the argument that for the optimal playthrough, that basically being how to get the most out of every moment of the game, you should go to Prince Lawrence's first. If you don't, when you arrive he will be almost dead and you can't save him, but if you go there first you actually can save him and he's in the game going forward, though he does break his own neck near the end. Nothing changes about Toad's scene if you go there first or after, so you're really only missing out by going there first. Lawrence doesn't really do anything for the game, but it is neat that he lives. So, episode 1 contains 7 cigarettes being lit. And, episode 1 also, great writing, episode 1 remains a fantastic start. As mentioned, it took me 2.5 hours, which is the longest I think it's ever taken me. I will say though, that it was hard to fully enjoy because of the conceit that I forced onto the game. I was kind of just waiting for something that never came, and it was upon finishing the episode that I realized, yeah, this may be a pivot type video. So that's 5 cigarettes for Bigby, 1 for the Colin, and likely the final cigarette for poor Faith. I say likely, she's ahead now. Fortunately, it didn't take long for episode 2 to immediately reciprocate my forced conceit and give meaning to my video and life, whatever that means. In the technically second opening scene, so not the opening scene, the second scene, what are you doing? As Bigby is interrogated by a Detective Brannigan after finding not Snow White's head, we finally have our first actual choice to do a smoke. Look, it says smoke. Who gives a fuck about Snow White's decapitated head? That's what I was hoping to find the whole time. Hurrah. I wrote hurrah. I didn't know what else to... Okay. There isn't much to say about this moment, and it's possible, likely even probable, that Bigby would have smoked on his own, but the choice was there, and that's the video. Unfortunately, that's what you're watching. No one's watching, but yeah. Don't worry, we'll come back to all this at the end. The second cigarette of episode 2 comes soon after, as we interrogate the woodsman. Just to differ, I went for him at the end of episode 1, and if you're feeling generous, you can give the guy a cigarette. By interrogating Woody, you can actually find out earlier than usual that he'd been paying Holly's aforementioned sister, Lily, for sexy times. Why did I write sexy times? This explains why Woody was confused by Faith's appearance at the start of the game. He was expecting Lily, and it gave me a thought I've never had before. Can you glamour a dead body? Well, can you? I don't have a clue. I'm asking you because I was confused in my last video and presumed that Lily died days before Faith and that maybe it's actually the same head somehow. This isn't true at all, as we later in episode 2 find a note from Lily thanking Faith for covering her shift, which is presumably this one with Woody. So this implies that Lily died like the same day but maybe after Faith? Unless someone planted this note and it wasn't Lily. I mean, look at Faith's cubby. Her jewelry box is busted in and her makeup is scattered on the floor. Why would she break her own stuff? Probably because this Faith is actually Nerissa, of course. Why else would that line be repeated at the end? Getting ahead of myself. So, did Nerissa go to Georgie to smooth things over, knowing that it wouldn't and they'd probably be in danger, then glamoured herself to be Faith? Or is Nerissa, as we see her, the glamour? The fact that the line about her being the Little Mermaid is made significant makes me think that it relates in some way, like something about her has changed now. I feel like I wrote the exact same thing in the last video. Like that line, verbatim, about the Little Mermaid. Okay. My theory previously was that the three girls would often glamour themselves as the other to cover shifts, but that doesn't make sense because why isn't Faith glamoured as Lily then? There's also no tangible way the three could have afforded these glamours unless it's like a one-time purchase with these glamour tubes. I never actually realised that the glamour tubes are what cause or give you the option to change appearance, it seems. Fuck man, I've been trying to figure this out for over a decade now. I just can't help myself. I'm always endlessly theorising this. Where are my cigarettes? I need a damn smoke. And Bigby needs a shit. Bigby, it's not Bigby. What fun. And Woody needs a shit from the sounds of it.
What's going on down here?
Really funny. If we're counting off-screen cigarettes, I guess Bigby and Snow arriving at the trip trap after Lily's autopsy counts, but we don't see it being lit, so I'm hesitant. If we're not counting it, the actual next one is maybe my favourite smoke in the game. In the game. While interrogating Georgie at the Pudding and Pie, you can choose to break his equipment. In my original video, I tried to abstain from doing any of this because I wanted to subvert what was expected of Bigby, being this brute who does what he wants and takes no prisoners, but this resulted in the scene being very awkward, and that was without the inappropriate Jenna Ortega joke that was right in that moment, which I shouldn't have said, but I did it. Oh, I'm crying. But this time, I was very... Nope, that's not the line. But this time, I very luckily chose to break the cigarette machine. By doing so, you can actually grab the pack that falls out and then, even smoke it. What a shock. This is maybe the only moment of the game where a seemingly random choice in the midst of a scene leads to a smoking moment. It's not used for dramatic cutaway effect, it's not in place of dialogue, it's just exactly what I was looking for. It's the most Heavy Rain P-like moment in the game, a totally optional and unimportant expression. I really wish the game had more moments like this, where you can find a cigarette or even buy them. This reminds me that I actually thought this could happen in episode 1. I chose to not give Faith any money because there's also a cigarette machine at the Trip Trap, and I was hoping I could use it, but unfortunately you are unable to buy any. Maybe being able to buy them reduces the effect. I suppose it is more in character for Bigby to break a cigarette machine instead of inserting money into one. That's easier to see when you're paying attention and not being a smartass to try and subvert the game's script. It's also why my mind went to The Walking Dead for video ideas, as that game has way more exploration and gameplay freedom than The Wolf Among Us, or most later Telltale titles. One of the best aspects of Walking Dead is walking around and talking to your companions, learning details about them in an optional way that strengthens the adventure. I figured there'd be something to go off there, but in a world that is constantly lacking resources and rapidly losing humanity in all the ways, I just couldn't come up with anything worthwhile. Darn, you didn't ask. Nerissa is able to indirectly send us to the Open Arms Hotel, and I recalled another cigarette machine here, but no. A good joke, though.
This shit'll kill ya.
This is the final cigarette lit in episode 2, and the area reminds me a lot of the apartment building where we first meet Scott Shelby in Heavy Rain. There's plenty to say about this part of the game, but not of cigarettes. Episode 2 was a lot of fun. I even enjoyed it more than episode 1 this time, and that's probably due to the not insignificant amount of cigarettes being smoked. 2 whole moments, what a treat, that I didn't even know about, so even I was surprised. Yeah, man. This brings the total to 8 cigarettes for Bigby, 2 of which we chose in this episode, 1 for the Colin, 1 for Faith, and 1 for the Woodsman. Oh yeah. Oh god, yeah. Episode 3's first cigarette isn't as immediate as episode 2's, as we go to the Tweedle's office and encounter Flycatcher. He's recently been let go from the business office by Crane, so the Tweedles sweeped him up to sweep the floors. I'll say now that episode 3 isn't too focused on slow moments to catch your breath and a smoke. We're deep into the investigation now, and it's a steady cruise. I was mostly just enjoying this episode, which was my favorite last time. In fact, this is the only moment that Bigby or anyone smokes in the whole episode. The fact that Bigby would casually smoke at several moments and now doesn't just shows how focused he is on mostly just going to people's apartments and having a nosy around. On to episode 4, and that's 9 for Bigby. The first 2 cigarettes of episode 4 are in rapid succession. I appreciate Telltale accelerating the process after episode 3 underwhelmed. I always thought that Narissa's cigarette here was a choice, like Faith's, but no, there's just dialogue choices here, so that's probably what I was thinking of. Thanks to Snow letting Bigby know that Beauty called, Narissa can once again indirectly push him the right direction, and the next cigarette comes as Bigby heads off. Bro was plowing through them after that silver bullet last episode. I also had to stop myself in this scene, as I often do when replaying this game. I get so twisted about the twist at the end, and it makes you hyper-analyze every scene that Narissa is in the hopes that something will be revealed when there obviously is nothing. It's like when I was watching this movie called All of Us Strangers, which mood-wise isn't completely the opposite of The Wolf Among Us, I suppose. Anyway, at one point near the end of the movie, after I'd almost burst into tears at several points, I found myself confused and my brain was racing. I could feel several thoughts coming through and trying to overanalyze every minute, right? Every minute moment. That was until I just told myself to stop thinking about it, and for once, that worked, and I was completely back invested in the movie instead of outside the movie and in my brain. No, I'm not telling you to just turn your brain off, but when you're thinking about every scene as it's happening, you're not really being present in it. There's nothing to miss here as far as secret details that reveal all, sure, but this way there's also nothing to gain or enjoy or appreciate or feel. I digress, I don't know what I'm talking about. Bigby is tasked with going to the Lucky Pawn or the Cut Above butcher shop from Beauty and then Beast. For the last 2 playthroughs I'd gone to the butcher's, so I was pretty interested to recall what happens at the pawn shop. It's not super exciting though, you just discover that Bloody Mary got the Woodsman's axe from there before Bigby and Woody tag team the Jersey Devil. Like Toad and Lawrence, you don't get this scene if you go to the butcher's first, and the butcher's scene is the exact same, I think, so I guess it's worth going to the pawn shop first. Well, wherever you go last is where Crane's coat with the magic mirror shard will be, for some reason. Either way, the next 2 cigarettes come after the pawn shop as Bigby lights one, and you can choose to give it to Woody. It's neat that this moment is a choice. You can deny the Man of Wood if you are so cruel. I already mentioned it in my other video, but seeing these constant rivals who are pitted against each other more by the world and their roles in it than any actual beef have this moment of understanding and peace is always just nice. This is another one of my favourite moments for smoking in the game, as Bigby often partakes in the drag solo. Even if this scene had no dialogue for some reason, you would just get what is happening here. You know, you just get it, you'd feel it. It's cinema. Yeah. Depending on where you go first, you'll also receive this scene of Bigby entering the butcher shop already smoking. Now, we kind of maybe disqualified an earlier scene for it being off screen, but in this case there is a little more nuance. There's specifically a no smoking sign, and the game prompts you to stop smoking. So if any of you want to make a how many times can you stop smoking in the Wolf Among Us video, we'll get help. But the game also, of course, lets you continue smoking. It's not the initial smoke, but it is still a puff, and as a, once again, non-smoker, I can't know if every cigarette suck is equally weighted and experienced. I'm just saying things. What am I doing? Especially when most of Bigby's views are dull buildings and a desecrated community that hates him on instinct. Or in this case, frozen meat and a sad state of a store. Episode 4 ends on a heck of a note, with the third choice to do a smoke as we enter the Crooked Man's lair. Once more, Bigby's lighting cuts us to black as we await this epic confrontation. Finally, another actual moment to choose a smoke. As you can tell, they are few and far between and always a delight to see. Episode 4 is probably the weakest though. It isn't very dissimilar to episode 3 with a lot of investigating and serpentining around, but you do start to get a bit of a feeling of filler at points. Luckily, we're finally onto the finale, and oh my word, there are some surprises in store. Not that butcher store though, state of it. 14 for Big B, 1 for the Colin, 1 for Faith, potentially 2 for Woody, and 1 for Narissa. Oh yeah. What a video. Well, it's not finished yet. So we get to grilling the Crooked Man, and our first cigarette actually comes from the real killer, Georgie. Crooked Man ordered Georgie to commit the murders, and we later find out his reason for doing so was to protect Vivian. It's finally revealed that Vivian is the original girl with the ribbon, keeping all lips sealed. This is a really nice scene to witness, seeing Vivian explain herself and then take her own life to break the curse. Well, that part wasn't nice per se. Once more, going after Georgie first lets you see this scene, but you probably won't see it because Crooked Man is the real culprit, not that Georgie is innocent by any means. But if you do go to Crooked Man first, Vivian is already dead when you arrive, and it's definitely worth getting her perspective on what they've done. Georgie gives us Crooked Man's location, the Shepherd Metalworks Foundry. I never noticed all these cases and boxes, presumably full of information and misdeeds and debts of the people of Fabletown, and a whole lot of research on Big B Wolf. The fight with Bloody Mary is fine, but it's not why I'm here, even without cigarette counting. So we capture the Crooked Man finally, and I was, before even starting this episode, debating what to do with him after the trial scene. I resolved that I'd lock him up this time instead of killing him, but that was until I saw this prompt from the game. Kill him now. Well, it is a Telltale game, so even if I click it, probably nothing will even happen, and holy shit, he's actually dead. What the fuck? You can kill the Crooked Man just like that? Big B chokes him out, and it's done. He doesn't even stand trial. What is the scene going to look like now? I was genuinely gobsmacked here. I was so staggered that they gave me the choice, and it just happened. Like in a real game. I had no idea you could just kill him right here, right now, in his office, and that's that. An actual choice that matters in a Telltale game. Maybe the biggest one of the whole game? This was such an exciting discovery for me, actually deviating from the set script, and the game accounts for it because the following scene, as mentioned, is completely changed now, and it's somehow equally as great and makes the journey feel like it mattered in its own way because this choice would definitely have consequences. As I just said, once again, great writing, the scene actually changes in a meaningful way with fairly consistent writing. Now, the citizens of Fabletown turn their ire and angry mobness toward Big B and Snow. It's also really interesting to see Snow initially mortified and furious at Big B for disobeying her, before the two have to kind of begrudgingly team up as everyone starts piling on them. Auntie Greenleaf is fuming at the two for Snow attempting to burn her tree, which I again didn't do for no reason, I'm just a little simp for Snow, I guess. Beauty and Beast essentially asked Big B to do this to Crooked Man, and are now horrified to see it happen. Holly is completely backing Big B and Snow after Snow showed that she cared about her sister's passing, even speaking at her funeral. Even Bluebeard is finally on at least Big B's side for doing what was, in his mind, necessary and just ending Crooked Man. Every character has a reasonable complaint, and it's all incredibly impactful to see. In particular, Gren is a very interesting case in this scene, because I actually did rip his arm off, so he's understandably mad about that, while still being consistent about thinking that Crooked Man deserved this fate. The Walking Dead had that phenomenal scene with the Stranger essentially recounting and calling your choices out of context, and The Wolf Among Us had this phenomenal courtroom scene with the Crooked Man, but it had basically the scene with the Stranger as well, and it's also phenomenal. I don't know what to say, it's a genuinely impressive display. Where the fuck did this Telltale go, man? And the later scene of Snow distancing herself from Big B kind of makes even more sense with this scene in mind, though it's clearly not the canonical choice. The whole thing is just so strange. The vibes now are really uneasy, and when the game ended, I felt that in a big way, like maybe things haven't changed for the better and it's all still a corrupt mess where Big B does whatever he wants. Much like Walking Dead Season 2, I was genuinely restless when it ended. I absolutely love how instead of finding out if the Crooked Man is even guilty, the scene just totally flips and becomes about what Big B and Snow have been doing for the whole game, if you've been helpful or hurtful to these people. It was really something, I tell you what. Even if this cigarette charade has underwhelmed, I am absolutely so glad I bothered to replay the game because I would have never encountered this scene. But back to the cigarettes, Big B once again is smoking near Flycatcher as he sees him in the business office and then sees him off outside for another smoke. Damn, Flycatcher be catching so much secondhand smoke. Unfortunately, that fringe doesn't go down to his nose. Those were weird sentences. Yeah, I'm just reading like what I wrote there. That is pretty weird. Okay. Toad and TJ are taken to the farm, while the Colin stays behind, once again cementing this thought that maybe my Big B is kind of corrupt. Then again, in my original video I actually gave the money I found in Crane's coat from episode 4 to Toad for a glamour, but this ending happens regardless. I was a little miffed at that and said something to the effect of, yo fuck Toad, fuck that guy. While it would have been nice to see another choice have some impact, I'm not sure it's needed here because Toad seems to not even want to get a glamour, so as far as character consistency goes, I guess this ending is fine. I should mention that if you send Colin to the farm, you are able to give him the cigarette you currently have, or even your whole pack. I'm not counting this as a unique cigarette though, since Bigby only lights one cigarette in either version of the scene. If it's just Toad, he lights it as Toad asks about Colin, and if Colin is present, he lights it as he walks to say goodbye to Colin. I did not realize this was even a choice though, I just never send Colin to the farm, so I never even thought about this. I'm also not even sure I'll even have my own footage to show because Colin going to the farm is one of those neat rare choices that isn't a direct one or the other. Whatever you choose here in episode 4's intro determines Colin's locational fate, so I'd probably have to replay all of episode 4 and 5, and I am not doing that, sorry. Nerissa arrives to give Bigby a final farewell before finally leaving Fabletown. Or New York, I guess. I'm gonna be honest, I really don't want to write about this ending again. Including my notes, this is like the 4th or 5th time I've done it. If you give a single shit about my batshit dumb fuck-ass theories, just watch the ending of the original videos, Walking Dead, not Walking Dead, Wolf Among Us part. I can't get Walking Dead off the brain. Oh my god. Plus, an ending like this is kind of ruined by thinking about it so much and trying to find details on replay that aren't there. As said, you just gotta feel this one out. You can't intellectualize it because it's not meant to even be figured out. As said in my original video, the fact that Nerissa repeats the same line is basically confirmation that this is the same person, so I'm not sure what even is to be theorized. I guess it's more like how it happened, like how we got to this point, not if it is. Well, here's the thing, I think most people are questioning, like, is this the same person? The person, like, Faith at the beginning, Nerissa at the end. I think it absolutely is. Like, I think that's not even worth debating. I think the question is more, how did that person end up there at the end? Like, what happened in between? Anyway, I've proved myself wrong. Anyway, ultimately, we're not here for that. We're here for cigarettes. Back to the script. This one may be controversial, but I am going to count giving Nerissa a cigarette and the game lighting it as a moment of choice to do a smoke, like the few moments prior. The Colin doesn't count, as it wasn't a choice, and Woody also doesn't count because Bigby had already lit the cigarette before handing it to him. In this unique case, you choose to give Nerissa the cigarette. I know Nerissa isn't Bigby, or maybe even Nerissa, but I'm still taking that one. And speaking of Nerissa actually being Faith, or whatever the fuck, you may think that that initial scene should count if this is the criteria, but no. You see, Faith already had her own cigarette, and Bigby merely lit it. We didn't choose to give her one of ours, so technically I'm being a bastard, but also right, because Faith will manage to light it herself. And that is the final cigarette among us. Unfortunately, I've lied and swindled once more. There is actually one more hidden cigarette moment, but you only receive it if you let Nerissa go. If you let her go instead of going after her, Bigby lights one last cigarette and walks back to the business office. So, technically this is a choice, but I have to question if it counts because every other choice specifically stated that the Bugby, oh my god. Why do I do this? Is anyone there? Is anyone listening? Okay. Alright, stop getting, like, for one. Okay. Because every other choice specifically stated that Bigby would smoke. In this final moment of the game, you don't know that Bigby will smoke, so while it is a choice, it's not like you're knowingly selecting it to do a smoke. But, to me personally, this choice feels like the canonical ending. Nerissa wanted to leave, and going after her would just be an awkward scene to imagine, like, what is Bigby going to say to her? Just let her go, I say. In fact, when you see your choices after this, it doesn't even mention going after her or leaving her alone, instead asking what your final words to her were, which also implies it's the canon ending because no more words were said between them. You see? You gotta pay attention to these things, man. Like me. We also see that only 10% of people would have witnessed this alternate trial scene. Telltale really said fuck the illusion of choice on this one, you know? Yeah, man. Yeah, oh. So, presuming the scene is canon, that means this actually shouldn't count as a smoking choice moment, I think, because if it is destined to happen regardless of the choice, then the choice to do it doesn't matter. This is why episode 2's strip club moment was so wonderful. It was an optional moment, like how you can find that watch in the first episode of Walking Dead Season 2 and then give it to Nick in episode 2. It doesn't matter, and it doesn't change anything besides your own contextual playthrough. It's a tiny moment that might make you connect with Nick a tiny amount, and maybe that's enough to spare his life. You see, if you couldn't tell from this video and my love for the Heavy Rain Piss video, I am obsessed with little expressions like this. You can't imagine a room full of writers arguing and debating this because it's not a big story decision. It's such an afterthought, but someone still thought to add it in, and I just love it. It's so interesting to me because it isn't at all. Also, you can give Pete a cigarette at the start of episode 2. Can I count that one? Can I count that one? No, because even if you don't choose to give it to him, you still give it to him. God damn it, Telltale, the fall off was so quick. That was a bit real. Okay. Anyway, I'll have to come back to this because this also puts a big question mark on the opening smoke of episode 2. If you were to abstain or choose other dialogue, does Bigby still smoke at some point? He does already have the cigarette in hand, or fingers, so it's easy to presume that he will, and thus that invalidates the moment of choice. Oh, this is very fun and not stupid. Oh god, this has ruined everything. I just checked my footage for the Telltale video for episode 4, and even if you don't choose to smoke, the bastard Bigby still smokes. Oh god, what's that? I guess that is obvious because the episode ends that way, so it would happen regardless, but oh no, I'm so disappointed. So, we still got that one, I guess. Anyway, episode 5 is a triumph. It is a bit short, but it does everything it needs to, and it gets in and out with no fuss or issue. I called it a 2-scene episode previously, and I meant it as a compliment. I would now say that everything besides the Bloody Mary fight is excellent, and this is easily the best episode of the game for me, after uncovering so many new details and whole scenes. I came for the cigarettes, and I left with an entire new appreciation of a game I already loved, so I really can't ask for more, you know. Why am I speaking like that? This game has some of the best moments and easily the best mood of any Telltale game, and that ending is still a classic. I've just plagiarized myself on that one, but it is true. 5 stars, which is saying something, because I had it at 3.5 before, like, who am I? And with all of that nonsense out of the way, the final cigarette count comes out to 1 for Faith, 1 or potentially 2 for the Colin, 1 for Georgie Porgy, potentially 2 for the Woodsman, 2 for Narissa, and a whopping 19 cigarettes for Bigby Wolf. If you don't give one to the Colin, even though it's the same cigarette, so I don't know. In total, 24. 24, why'd I say it like that? This includes both off-screen cigarettes being lit and also the final choice, so it may be 18 or even 17 by someone else's count, but I just decided to count every one I saw. This means Bigby averaged 3.8 cigarettes every episode, which is almost 2 more than every other... Oh god, I'm dying. Which is almost 2 more than every other character we see in the game. Apparently the average cigarette pack contains 20 cigarettes, so this means Bigby ran through his whole pack minus 1 in this game. It's worth saying here at the end that it doesn't seem like Bigby carries a pack on his person, but he obviously does because he keeps pulling them out from somewhere. I like to imagine though, in my own headcanon, that Bigby was running low and once he grabbed this pack from the Punden Pie, he started using this one instead. Maybe that's why there's only 1 smoke in episode 3. He only had the 1 left and then had to use this new pack going forward. Sure, I like that, why not? You gotta make your own fun, you know? You gotta, yeah. Anyway, this means that the moment with Detective Brannigan, the moment at the Pudding and Pie, the moment in the Crooked Man's Lair, and the moment with Narissa brings the amount of smokable choices that you can select to a nice 4. That was a bad sentence. It brings the amount of smokable choices that you can select to a nice 4. 4 out of 19. No, not 19, it was 24, wasn't it? Wait. Oh god, what have I done? Wait a second, 4 out of 19. Oh, 4 out of 19 is in like 4 of Bigby's 19. But not the total 4 out of 24, which would be 20. Ah, making 21% of the smokes a choice, apparently. Not really though, because, you know, I didn't count the ones that Bigby didn't do. Well, yeah, but, god, what? Okay. I was hoping for at least 1 per episode, but not quite. But if you were to take 4 cigarettes and place them in between your fingers, you'd be able to do that. Of course, as we've discovered, this is all bogus and baloney. There's only 1 truly missable optional smoking choice in the game. But I already wrote that other part, so I would still count Narissa at the end, but anyway. I can't think of any other interesting stat, so I guess that will be that. Thanks. And I guess that's the end, because I've got nothing else written. Let's see if this video gets made. See if this one gets uploaded. Thanks. Oh god. Oh no.